Welcome into another episode of Talking Business. I am Scott Mann, and I'm joined today by Anita Lane. Anita, thanks for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So, Anita is the Assistant General Manager and a Project Manager for Riverstone Resort and Spa in Pigeon Forge. Anita, tell us a little bit about what all your job entails and a little bit about the company as well.
Sure. I've been in this position about 7.5 months. Riverstone Resort and Spa is an owner-owned condominium resort in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. We have anything from 1 to 4 bedroom condos. We see lots of families come in for leisure time. To stay with us. We have a lazy river and a spa and all the fun things that a resort has. So a couple days a week, I am the assistant general manager. That means when the GM's off, I kind of act in that role and take care of the property and take care of owners' needs and guests and the team. And then the rest of the week, I spend taking things apart and putting them back together for the most part. I'm a project manager. When I came into the situation, the housekeeping team needed a revamp. And so I helped pick a new leader, train that new leader, develop a team, set up structure, retool some processes that would allow for some efficiencies, things like that. That's probably one of the things I love the most about my job is the ability to transition from project to project. So it never gets bored. In hospitality, no 2 days are ever the same. But in that, it gives me that secondary layer to where I know that I'm going to have these short-term projects that I'm working on. So it's a lot of fun. I enjoy what I do.
Excellent. So, tell us a little bit how you got into this position and if you had any type of education, training, certifications, anything along those lines.
Okay. So I'll proudly say that I attended Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College in Goshen, Mississippi, long, long time ago. So I was a community college girl to begin with. And I will also proudly say I attended Pellissippi State. I love Pellissippi. Think a lot of the organization. Um, as far as the skill set, as far as getting into the business, I sort of stumbled into hospitality. I intended to go to school for accounting, thought that I would do that. Loved accounting, thought that was great work. I was actually pretty good at the work. So I took a job when I was 17. I had a great mentor. She, strangely enough, my first job was in timeshare, which is really hospitality driven, but I was working on the accounting side. Started as a payroll clerk many, many years ago, and then just kind of kept following that accounting trail to where I ended up working for my first hotel, which was a Crown Plaza in downtown Knoxville. Um, Loved it, loved full service. Owe a lot to Ken and Tammy Knight, who are the owners down there, the operators down there, and stumbled through on the accounting side to where I really fell in love with hotel operations. So when I felt like I was a big girl enough, I decided to maybe take a chance and see. Answered a blind ad. Didn't expect it to be in my market. Didn't expect to get the job. But I got my first GM role. And so I spent 12 years at the Crown and then rolled into operations, which is a whole different ball of wax in hospitality. And spent 12 years with that company. And then right at the 12-year mark, made the change to transition into resorts. So I took a long path. I loved accounting work, but I would say one of the things I learned very quickly is that you have to play to your strengths. You have to do what gets you up in the morning and really makes you feel passionate. And so, as much as I loved accounting and I love having that piece of my brain, I really fell in love with the people part of this business. So yeah, so I stumbled into it and fell in love with it, and now I'm doing what I need to be doing, which is definitely the people side of the business.
Excellent. So, you just mentioned something that's been a pretty common theme throughout each episode, and that's doing something that you enjoy and not just chasing money.
Sure.
So, that it's great, and I love that in each episode it's getting like kind of just pounded home is do what you enjoy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think if you, what is that saying? They say if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. So I don't know that that's 100% true. I've worked quite a few days in my life, but I enjoy my work. I enjoy my environment. I do. I feel successful. not because of my paycheck. I feel successful because of the lives that I've been able to touch and the people that hopefully have walked away better for having spent some time with, mentoring, tutoring, coaching, whatever you want to call it. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So in your position, are there any kind of certifications or continuing education credits that
Yeah, so you can get hospitality is great. So there's a wonderful organization called American Hotel and Lodging Association, and so you can get certified. In the pandemic, what you saw, which I thought was really unique, was that that organization really did a great job of. You had a lot of people that got furloughed. If you know anything about the hotel business, about hospitality in general, you know it took a hard hit during the pandemic, and so what you saw was that organization step up and say, okay, if you are furloughed, if you are at home, let's go get your certification. So you can get a certified hospitality administrator. You can get certified in accounting. So there's some good spaces that you can do that if you're a business professional. I'll be honest with you. I think Pellissippi does a phenomenal job with their hospitality school. I know them well. I know the folks at UT, and they have do also a great job. So while I didn't necessarily have to finish my education, I encourage people to do that. It was a longer path for me. So yeah, I think there's lots of great opportunities out there to do. I'm definitely a big advocate for on the job training, but if you do it well and you've got good time management skills, you should be able to do both, especially in this day and age when you can do Zoom meetings and Zoom classes. You can balance that with work and still have the best of both worlds. When I look back now, I think that I wish that opportunity had presented itself when I was younger, because that's where I struggled. I couldn't work 45 hours and be great, successful. And it was because I was successful that I kept getting promoted, but that left less and less time for school. And so I think today you have this unique opportunity that you can do both, and you can pursue your career, but you can also get the tools in the toolbox that you need to be excellent at your career. I don't know anybody that wakes up and wants to be mediocre. So yeah,
exactly?
yeah,
So something else that you mentioned was you started out in accounting and then kind of rolled over into the hospitality field because you're more of a people person.
sure.
Um, and that's something else that's been pretty consistent throughout each episode is
Mhm.
um, in the first episode, the project manager started out as a mechanical engineer and then rolled over into project manager. Um, we had somebody else that started out wanting to major in accounting, switched over to finance, was a day trader for a little bit, and now he's doing mortgages.
Oh, cool.
And so it's just don't think that just because you pick a certain path that you're
Right.
stuck, because
No.
there's definitely many ways that you
Yeah.
can reach your end goal.
For sure. And I'm a big believer that you need to check in with yourself. You need to listen to yourself. There have been times in my career where I've not done as good a job with that, where I've just kind of got caught up in the grind. And then you look up and you think, okay, I'm 5 years in, 7 years in. One thing age has taught me is to check in with myself more often. So I do sort of a yearly evaluation. I do have a personal board of directors, and that board of directors has changed dramatically over the years with my career. It's very different this year than it even was last year. But yeah, for me, it's like pulling a string. So you pull that string and you take a look and you say, okay, this feels right for right now. I don't regret any of the work that I've ever done or the changes that I've made in my career. A lot of people say, who changes jobs in the middle of a pandemic? Well, me, and a lot of other people, I think. Yeah, I think it gave you the opportunity to really evaluate and say where do I want to go and be intentional about that. What's funny about my story is I actually changed jobs and came out of an accounting situation. I was a hotel controller, so I was doing accounting work in a hotel, fell in love with it, walked out of that situation in May of '08, and in December of '08 we were in a recession. So apparently when we have major financial issues, I decided to change jobs. So, but that's okay. Let's hope not that we won't have any more of those anytime soon. But yeah, I think it's important to really to figure out that you don't have to have one specific, I have to do this for the rest of your life. I'm changing now even again, and one of the things I love about this position is allows me to have a little more time. So I'm getting ready to start a business with a business partner where we do consulting work. and I've
Wow,
never really done
nice.
that for myself. And so at this stage in my career, what I really want is to be great at my job, but I also want to carve out a little niche for myself so that I can take what I've learned and go share it with that next generation and do it in a way that makes sense and in a way that that works for me and that still allows me to be a mom and a wife and a community servant and all those other things as well. So yeah,
That's excellent.
I think if you're doing it well, it will change, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, what are some challenges with your job that you face?
Um, well, okay, so I would say in this position, in this particular resort, we have a new clientele. If you think about how the pandemic changed the scope of travel, Riverstone is a great example of an upheaval, but a positive upheaval. I think you had a lot of folks that were of a different generation that would come year over year, and they would bring their kids and their grandkids, and maybe you're talking 2 and 3 generations, right? So when the pandemic hit and things slowed down, all of those people stayed home.
Mhm.
But I will say stimulus money came and new people came and
Mhm.
people with young children came. And so all of a sudden the lazy river's full and people are saying, I've never been here, but I can't wait. I think everything that you do, if you do it with a positive spin, and if you wake up every morning and you feel like, for me personally, I'd use the word blessed, then you look at those things as a silver lining. So we got to get in front of people who might not have stayed here before, who might not have felt like this was within their scope, might not have even wanted to stay with us. Um, and so we had a different audience and we got to perform in front of that audience and earn the opportunity to create that next group of people who say, I want to bring my kids and grandkids and I want to buy in Riverstone and I love Pigeon Forge. So that's the positive. The hard part about that, the challenge was, I don't know that we were ready for that group quite as well as we could have been. And then when you come outside, when you come on the other side of a pandemic, and I took the job June 1st, which was like one of the peak months. July is one of our busiest months. We weren't adequately staffed. So it's like, yay, we're busy. And it's like, oh my gosh, we're busy. So I think, it can be a challenge to try to find the right people and to motivate those people to very quickly and get them ingrained in the culture. The biggest thing that my boss, work partner, whatever you want to call her, and I were brought in to do was to help with the renovation project. And so then you have that layer as well. So there's all these things going on at the same time. And oh, by the way, we're open for business and we have a lot of people wanting to stay. So I think just the scope and the breadth and how fast it ramped up. Riverstone never closed during the pandemic. They were very blessed. There were some low occupancy days, but never had to close. So yeah, just kind of ramping it back up on the other side of that has been challenging. For me, getting to know a different scope of the business, I thought that it was very similar to hotels. I'd spent 25 years in hotels. It's much more complex when you're working with someone's home. So for some people, this is
Mhm.
their second home. For some people, this is their primary home. It's a true residence, so it's very different than you add in guest. We're in the management company, so we also have condos that are outsourced through some of the other third party channels like VBRO. So then you have those. It's very complex, and so it took me a minute to kind of get used to that. So I think that's one of the challenges in my job, but I like a challenge. I approach it, from that perspective. I think that's one of the things that can make it, if you lean in, it can make your job fun. So
Nice. I
yeah,
like how you just took your challenge and you're like, I'm going to accept this challenge and I'm going to make it fun and enjoy it.
absolutely. Absolutely. So
It's a
nobody
lot
wants to
better
be in a work
than,
miserable all day. Nobody I know. If you are, get out. So yeah, for sure.
so with salary range,
Yeah.
start with entry level. If somebody were to complete an Associates of Applied Science and Hospitality Management,
Yeah.
what would they be making as entry level? And then as they continue to work their way up, say they get up to a general manager, what are
Sure.
you looking at as far as time frame and then also salary range?
So I would definitely say get at least an associate's degree. I'm not as familiar with the salary range in this market as I was in Knoxville. That's the market I came out of. So let's say for an assistant GM in Knoxville, you're looking at probably 40 to 60. That's your salary range. If you have an associate's degree, if you have that bachelor's degree, you're probably going to be still on the higher end of that. When you bump up to GM, it's a larger scope. So you're going to look at, maybe 60 to 80 base salary. One of the things that I think is great about the hospitality industry is that you have a lot of owners that have really moved into that performance based. Your big global management companies, they're very performance based. You have a great base salary, but you also have this wonderful opportunity to earn based on things like, your star performance and your medallia scores, and really, the things that matter in this business. So, um, big believer in trying to get as much education as you can or as feels comfortable for you. But it definitely puts you ahead. There's a lot of folks out there. The thing I would say too is that you really want to make sure that you combine that with some experience as well. It
Mhm.
can be tricky to try to come out with a degree and no experience. Those folks are really, I think, need to adjust their expectations. I meet with a lot of different young people throughout the year, and I know what you've put into your education, but walking into hospitality asking for $50,000 a year when you've never managed anyone ever can be that's tricky.
Mhm.
So you could do both, and I'd go back to saying find unique opportunities to do both. Even if it's your local ice cream shop, be a team leader and manage two people, because that's something that you can really learn and cut your teeth on while you're getting that degree. So,
And chances are, if you're managing a local ice cream shop, then you'll probably see me and my family there as well.
okay, added bonus, right? So
So you've given a lot of advice throughout this interview.
sure.
So what advice would you give to somebody starting college, or maybe somebody who is coming back to college for a career change?
Yes, and go reconnect. I'm a huge fan of that as well. So, Anthony Wise did not pay me for this interview, just so we're clear. But I will tell you, I serve on the foundation board, so all truth there. So I do love Pellissippi deeply. Advice that I would give to folks, you know, broaden the scope. Make sure that you look at, don't come into hospitality with just, I want to do this. Try some different things out. Raise your hand. Be willing to take on something. One of the things I think that served me well in my first role with my first hotel company was that we didn't really have an AGM position. So I raised my hand over and over and over again and said, "Let me take that. I'd like to try that. Can I do that?" And I'm not going to say that I did a great job. There were some epic failures in that, but I had a great group of people that believed in me and let me fail. Um, Failure, there's a good subject. You know what? Do not be afraid to fail.
Yep.
It is so important. I have learned so much more from my failures than my successes, because if you do it well, it teaches you a lot about yourself. It teaches you a lot about how you need um, to not necessarily change, but really understand who you are, and what you need to be successful. So I'll give you a great example. One of the first, when I took my GM role, I figured out really quickly that I want to hire everybody. So I just want to save the world. So I hired a young lady who was in a refugee program, and she was amazing, and I wanted to help her because her story resonated with me so much. But I hired her for a highly performing hotel to work on my front desk, and she spoke very limited English. So 2 weeks later, when she came to me and said, "Thank you for this opportunity, but this is not the job for me, and here's the reasons why." eh, I took that as an opportunity to step back and say, "Okay, how did this happen? And what can I do differently?" From that moment on, I knew that I needed a partner to work with, so that so that while I wanted to hire everybody, I would align with somebody who said, let's not hire anybody. And then somewhere in the middle is where we can meet those great people. I would say, just know yourself, do self examinations, make sure that you're asking yourself the tough questions. A book that I recommend to everyone, and it has really changed my life. The John Maxwell book, 21 Laws of Irrefutable Leadership. I still love those laws. I still live by those laws. But if that's not your cup of tea, there's a lot of other great books out there. There's servant leadership books. There's always ways to grow yourself. Um,
Absolutely.
so, continue to do that while you're going to school, while you're doing the work, carve out a little time to grow you. And I think that's important as you go.
So I'm going to kind of piggyback on the advice, and something that I've learned in my professional career is treat everybody the same. So
Hmm.
whether it's the custodians, the maids, the landscapers, maintenance, treat them the same as you would the owner or the general manager,
Hmm.
because those are probably the people that are going to save you the most.
Hmm. Oh, absolutely.
So just
So I
because
think,
they just
yeah, and
because they may be below you does not mean that you should treat them any differently than you would the owner or the president or the general manager. So it looks like we have lost Anita here for a minute. I will be linking out the certification that she talked about, as well as the resort, in the description below. So um, hope you enjoy it.